time to do it, Jim, because they themselves are in the midst of a massive crisis, which is of their own doing, but which also has a lot to do with another process that I think has to be very much kept in mind, and that is that they are wrapping up globalization and moving on to formal world government. So that in itself is a huge war that they are waging against humanity. So whether we like it or not, we have to face that reality, and we can only do that from our respective countries. Just as globalization was imposed upon us from top to bottom, recovering and being able to fight back will have to be done from bottom to top. And bottom to top means from grassroots, from municipalities, which turn into provinces, which turn into nations. And as nations can come together, at least we can do something to mitigate the damage that they are doing and identify their huge weaknesses. Because strategic planning always tells us when you identify a weakness in your adversary, it automatically becomes a strength for you.
Very well put. I agree very much with that assessment, because it's quite clear that this economic crisis that we see going on right now has been brought about on purpose in order to liquefy international relations, in order for the New World Order to cement its world government, its nascent world government. And I think that liquefaction could also work in our favor, because the destabilization means there are more people who are willing to listen to alternative ideas like the Second Republic project. So tell us, where do you think we are in the timeline of being able to institute some of these ideas?
I think we're probably it's smack in the midst of one of the most critical points within this whole process. And for this, Jim, we need to do something that they have been very good at and that we have to understand. I'm 58 years old. I'm probably by now the fourth, maybe the fifth generation of people who have been educated, elementary school, high school, and college, to be short-term thinkers. We have all been educated to think in the short term, get a career, get married, get a life. In other words, plan your own life and forget about any long-term thinking. However, the global power elite, and that's what Harvard and Princeton and Yale and Oxford and Cambridge are there for, the global power elite have been educated in long-term thinking. And long-term thinking is a very complex beast. It means starting something today, the results of which may come 10 years down the road, or maybe 20, or starting something today, the results of which you won't see, your children or your grandchildren will see. And that's what the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Bushes are very good at. So they know that they can do their long-term planning smack in front of our noses, and we don't even realize it because we have not been trained to identify long-term processes, because we can only think in the short term. On top of it, short-term thinking makes you very geared on yourself, which makes you egotistical, which breaks down basic social solidarity of working together against a common purpose. So the short-term thinking, we have to start thinking in long-term the way they do. And when you look at it in long-term, this is my conclusion. Just as 21, 22 years ago, they realized that the bipolar world had served its purpose and that they had to move on. And that's what the Trilateral Commission was founded in 1973 for. And Zbigniew Brzezinski, Jimmy Carter's former national security advisor, spells it out quite clearly in his 1971 seminal book, Between Two Ages, the Role of America in the Technotronic Age. They realized that they had to now move on to globalization, but they had to get rid of the Soviet Union. And instead of going into an outright military conflict, which would have been mutually assured destruction, they infiltrated the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, with capitalist companies and capitalist culture, and the former Soviet Union collapsed without firing a shot. They did that very well. It took them 20 years, but they achieved it. And that's what the Berlin Wall falling, the reunification of Germany, the demise of the former Soviet Union meant in 1990, 1989, 1990, 91. But globalization also is just a step on the way to something even bigger. Globalization was the 20-year period that they needed, amongst other things, to install the electronic and technological infrastructure for total societal control, for the full control of people, the internet, cellular telephones, communications, 500-channel TV, radio frequency ID chips, GPS, etc., all the stuff we know. So now they have in place the technology which they control for total control of people. Even though the internet is a two-edged sword, they still know that they control it. Now they have to close globalization, they're wrapping it up, and move on to the New World Order, which is world government. Every time they say New World Order, they're merely describing the next stage that they want to found. Because don't forget, when the Council on Foreign Relations was founded in 1919, they spoke about a New World Order after World War One. Then in 1944 and 1945, they spoke about the New World Order with Bretton Woods and the United Nations after the Second World War. Then they spoke of a New World Order. Bush Sr. said it openly in 1991 when they were wrapping up the bipolar world and ushering in globalization. And now the New World Order is they are wrapping up globalization and moving on to formal world government, which contrary to globalization, which has been very horizontal, borderless, chaotic, quite even dangerous in a way for them. Now, world government will be very vertical, very authoritarian, very police-like, and that is what they are moving us onto. They are dragging us to that. And whilst the bipolar world into globalization was relatively peaceful, globalization onto world government is becoming a highly violent and dangerous process for every country in the world.
That's exactly right, and you bring out so many good points there. But I think it's absolutely incumbent upon all of us to really understand and to try to cope with the idea that the system that we've been placed into has not just come about overnight. I mean, it's something that's been carefully crafted over generations. And you talk about Brzezinski back in the 70s and talking about the new era of globalization and pointing out that the Soviet Union had to go. Well, it's important to understand that the Soviet Union itself was brought about and prompted into existence and funded and supplied by the American Wall Street interests that gained from having that bipolar world. When that bipolar world was out of fashion, they needed to usher in the globalization era. Now that globalization is out of fashion, they want the one world government era. And you're right, this is a long-term strategic plan that's been unfolding for generation after generation. And it's difficult for a lot of us to understand that such a thing can even happen, let alone how it comes about. And then to think about having to counteract that, obviously it's going to be a generational struggle again. So on that note of the New World Order type political elite always funding the opposition, do you see a way for the Second Republic project might be co-opted, or that idea might be attempted to be subverted by the interests who are actually working for world government as a way of discrediting the movement or trying to lead it off into unproductive solutions?
Oh, absolutely. Since this is a war, albeit basically a psychological war, war always entails risk. And there is definitely the risk that they will try to co-opt Second Republic or any similar movement in just about any part of the world, if not destroy it. Vladimir Lenin, since you spoke about the former Soviet Union, Lenin used to say that a true revolutionary, the way they are, has to control actions and reactions. And since they know that for every action there will be a reaction for people like yourself and myself, they will try to co-opt it and shove it into a dead-end street. So, that is something that we have to be very careful and very alert to. This is like being on the Titanic. You have to look out for those icebergs all the time. You can't take a rest for a 15 or a 20-minute rest. If you take a rest, well, look what happens. Look at the Titanic. So that being said, the one of the key points, and this is very important for our American listeners, is that just as the move from the bipolar world to globalization required for one of the superpowers to go into the waste bin of history, and that superpower was the former Soviet Union. And the fact that it went so quietly, I think, is proof that above the Kremlin and above the White House, there is a much higher power that be. Now, as we move from globalization to world government, the other superpower that has to go is the United States of America. Not that it will disappear like that. It will be like the former Soviet Union, turned into something much smaller. Like the Soviet Union is now 20 independent states, smaller entities. America will also see its relative power wane dramatically. There might even be a territorial split, we don't know. Because a global government cannot tolerate that there should be any superpower, because now the White House and Congress is in the hands of friends, the Bushes, the Clintons, the Obamas. But what would happen if tomorrow a true patriot, an American patriot, were to come into the Oval Office and were to say, okay, I don't like what we're doing militarily abroad. I don't like the people we're attacking. I'm going to start supporting some of them. I don't like the Federal Reserve, the way it's run. I'm going to just stop it and start up a new central bank. I don't like what the bankers are doing. I'm going to put them in jail. And all these measures, which would be geared on the national interest of the people of the United States and not on the interest of the bankers. I don't like America's unflinching and unconditional alignment and subservience to the interests of international Zionism in general and the state of Israel in particular. I'm going to change all of that. Well, if somebody were to do that in the Oval Office at the White House, that would be, it could even spell death for world government. So they need for the United States to also become something much smaller, much more controllable, an upgraded version of what today Argentina and Brazil and the countries in Latin America are.
All right. Well, we could really spend hours and hours fleshing this out, but I guess the point is that I want to leave with the viewers and listeners is that there are things that we can be doing to start changing the system. So let's get into some specific things that people can be doing and how you want to see this playing out in the short term.
Well, yeah. First of all, allow me to quickly say that we have a website which is www.secondrepublic.com, where we've uploaded videos and white papers and so forth, and I think people can see a lot of that and have an idea. In general terms, and applying again, as I say, basic common sense, I think that there are 10 things that we can do. The first is we have to open our eyes and ears, and that's what programs such as the Corbett Report are doing so wonderfully, and a lot of alternative media on the internet is doing. Secondly, we have to stay alert. Like the guy and the Titanic, we have to stay alert for all these icebergs that are all over the place. We have to see the world around us, third, the way it really is. Fourth, we have to use common sense. Use your own mind. Don't think with the mind of the Wall Street Journal or Fox News or CNN, because they are part of the system. Fifth, we have to stay calm. Like when the Titanic started sinking, people went into panic. That meant certain death. Stay calm. We have to be ice cold in our thinking. Sixth, we have to act diligently. Do whatever has to be done wherever we are, and do it diligently and do it correctly. Seventh, we have to be optimistic. Don't see it as something, oh no, the global power elite are too big. There's nothing we can do about it. Don't forget that one of the premises of psychological warfare is to make the enemy think we're the enemy for them, to make the enemy think that they are much stronger than they really are, and to make us feel that we are much weaker than we really are. And I'll accept that there is a big gap, but it's not that big. So when we realize that the gap is not all that big, that gives us the necessary optimism to really start doing what has to be done at the right time. Eighth, alert family, friends, colleagues, neighbors. The more people that know what's really happening, the more critical mass we can build to turn things around. And that critical mass means merely people of a certain quality, not quantities. All great things in history have been done by relatively small groups of people. And ninth and 10th, basically defend your spiritual values, which is what the fifth pillar of the Second Republic is all about, and defend your material values. Defend your house, defend your stuff, be very save for a rainy day. Don't put all your money in the banks, and obviously, try to have things planned so that if an emergency comes about of whatever nature, that you are more or less ready. At least being ready from here, being ready in your mind and in your heart will give you a head start.
That's right. Well, absolutely. Trying to get ourselves off of the system that's enslaving us is obviously one of the first and key steps. So I agree. Well, so secondrepublic.com is the actual website for the Second Republic Project. How about your own personal website?
Yeah, so it's Second Republic Project altogether, secondrepublicproject.com. And my own personal website is www.asalbuchi, that's ASALBUCHI.com.AR. And on YouTube, I've got a whole lot of videos which have been uploaded as AR Salbuchi. Oh, and by the way, tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time on American Freedom Radio, which is an internet network, I'm starting my own radio program, 2 hours every Friday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is called Second Republic, quite fittingly. You visit www.American Freedom Radio, altogether, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, and you can listen to it automatically. We go live at 9 p.m. Central Standard every Friday, and then they will be posting it on the website, so you can listen to it whenever you want afterwards.
Excellent. Well, I have read your book in English, and it is full of extremely interesting information, so I do suggest that people go out there and get it. Adrian Salbuchi, just an incredible overview of an incredibly complex and detailed subject, so I hope people will start researching it for themselves at secondrepublicproject.com, and I hope we can talk about this more in the future as the Second Republic develops and as your radio program starts to get the word out to even more people. So once again, Adrian Salbuchi, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure, and I'm always at your fullest disposal. Thanks a lot, Jim.